where flexibility and readability reign supreme in programming. The concept of data classes has emerged in recent years as a powerful tool for simplifying the creation of classes, primarily meant to hold data. Welcome guys to our first Thursday episode here of PyPod Chronicles, usually released on Tuesday, now pushing it out with my new podcast as well as content schedule. I'm stoked to have you guys here. Let's dive in. Last week you were introduced to a key object-oriented programming concept that not only optimizes our code but gives us a creative way to organize our code too. I broke down static and abstract methods, showing use cases for them both. In today's episode, you're going to dive through the hoops of data classes, exploring why they exist, their usefulness, and when to use them. Along the way, I'm going to give you guys a few examples and reasonings to back these. Killer comedy. So grab your favorite cup of joe, with caffeine of course, sit back and relax as I break it all down. Welcome to PyPod Chronicles, a series that brings our tech blog to life in a whole new way. Covering an array of topics surrounding Python and tech, from programming tips, best practices, and so much more. Let's get immersed in Python with the Nerd Nook on the go. Guys, I've just launched my premium content on the Nerd Nook. That's right. You're going to get long-form articles that break down things in detail. A part of the free program is just short-form articles. They only scratch the surface. In my premium, I have long form as well as a new weekly premium newsletter called 3 Randoms, and you're going to get a project every month where I break things down that guide you through that you can create on your own. Swing on by and check out premium and get a 7-day free trial today. Guys, before I fully dive into this episode, do me a favor, right? This is the new content schedule. All my content is pouring out this week. Click the like button on whatever streaming platform you're on. If you're into podcasts, right? Do a restack and let me know your thoughts. This is episode 44. We've come a long way, and I'm only more excited to keep growing in 2024. All right, back to it. So our introduction to data classes is really where I want to kick things off. And at its core, a data class in Python serves as like a blueprint for creating immutable data structures. We can mutate these, but we can also freeze these. By leveraging the data class decorator, this was originally introduced in 3.7, we can expedite the creation of classes that are specifically tailored for data storage and manipulation. Okay, so this eliminates the need for a lot of boilerplate code. And what I mean by that, imagine a day in the life of grandma on Thanksgiving morning. Now, I'm not sure where you're from, right? So Thanksgiving in the US is a big holiday, and it's one of my favorites. It probably is my favorite, right? It's just a bunch of good food. So grandma on Thanksgiving morning, she has a plethora of ingredients at her disposal, each with its own unique flavor and texture. But not too many though, because we literally eat the same thing every year for the holidays. Turkey, mashed potatoes, stuffing, green beans, you name it, right? The same thing could be applied to Python. In the kitchen of Python, classes are similar to recipes. They hold behavior, define structure, and create instances or objects, right? Dishes. Now, traditionally when crafting classes in Python, particularly those intended for storing data, we often find ourselves writing repetitive boilerplate code. This could be the init constructor, right? The string representation, the equality operator. All of these are just boilerplate code. It's tedious, it's repetitive. Data classes emerge now as grandma's little helper, which was probably you, right? Let's all face it, it was us. A trusted aid that simplifies the preparation process, leaving you more time to focus on the code that matters. If we boil it all down, a data class is just like any other Python class, but with a twist. It's optimized for storing data. This is a new tactic to further optimize your code to increase the overall performance. Originally, when we create a data class, right, I would create a constructor in it and create the properties that this class will hold. While, yeah, it does work, it is very readable in a sense if you're starting off. We can now look at new ways to take your development skills up a level. The first being this data class. We all know that Python is a slower language, especially when we compare it to a compiled language like C++, Java. But don't get ahead of yourself. Python is still faster than watching paint dry on your walls. To create a data class, Python provides us the data class decorator that we can import from the data classes module. Now guys, let's note something here. If you need a simple yet immutable data container, you could just use a named tuple. Alright, I'll talk about this at another stage. But in just a few lines of code, if you link your data class operator to your class, voila, you have a data class. There is no need for that boilerplate code. We really just use type hintings here. Like for example, I'd create a variable name separated by a colon and then inserting the type of data that represents. So name : string, age : int, job : string. Okay, and that would just hold our data in the class. I've introduced briefly here how we create them, right? But why do we use data classes? Because it's not just about saving your keystrokes. While it is a lot shorter on our code, okay, that boilerplate, yeah, absolutely, it is faster in that sense. But data classes allow you to define a structure of your data with minimal syntax, right? That's what I mentioned there. It increases the readability, but then it also allows us to link on immutability. So I mentioned earlier that a data class is our go-to for a more secure form of holding data. Now, this is because the data class can be made immutable by adding a parameter to the data class decorator. In the decorator, if I say frozen equals true, this prevents any accidental modification of your data, and this promotes safer programming practices. The only comparison I have that made sense to me is JavaScript. Right at the top of a JavaScript file, if I put strict, that is kind of like, hey, I need to use the best practices here. It's kind of the same thing, right? I can't really change that. By adding a simple one-liner, frozen equals true, this allows us to increase our immutability. Finally, interoperability. Now, another major milestone for working with data classes is that people often don't realize a data class can integrate other Python features that play well together. So a data class plays really well with serialization, like with JSON data, right? Because we hold our data in a JSON file. So along with our data class, I can import from data classes as dict, which comes with that, and that's a function. So that really just takes our object that we create from our data class and it dumps it into a JSON file into a dictionary structured format. So don't overuse these two guys, right? When to reach for a data class? When is a good time to reach for a data class? While they're incredibly versatile, it's not always the best tool for every job. Remember, it is always good to make your code as clean and readable as possible, but that only applies to a certain extent. So, number one, DTOs, data transfer objects. These serve as pivotal components in our applications where data is interchanged frequently. Okay, so if you're working with web APIs or database interactions, a data class is perfect. Okay, this is great. You could be doing configuration settings. Now, these settings are key parts to any application. Back to a web server, right? It could be a game engine, doesn't matter. These settings dictate the behavior and functionality of your applications, and they could be ranging from simple flags like your debug mode in Flask, or it could be complex parameters like maximize connections and timeouts. So, configuration settings, create a data class. And lastly, ORM. This is a rather advanced topic, but it's object relational mapping. So in database-driven applications, ORM bridges the gap between object-oriented programming and relational databases. And data classes play a pivotal role in ORM frameworks by providing you a structured representation of the elements that are directly mapping to our databases, right? These elements are within our data class. Wow, guys. So I've given you a bunch of tips here as to why data classes set us apart, when to use them, why to use them. I have articles about this, right? The link in the description. Head down there. Okay, back over to the blog. I have an article about this in a soon-to-be episode on Code with Josh on the channel, right? So check that out. But really, data classes are the duct tape of Python because they're versatile, dependable, and they're always there when you need them. Okay, that's just my analogy, not really. But they're like a trusty roll of tape when you need them. They're ready to patch up that hole in your backyard blow-up swimming pool that you got at Kmart. Just like duct tape, how it can fix that backyard Kmart swimming pool, data classes are a step to streamline your code in the right direction, patching up inconsistencies and keeping your code base from falling apart at its seams. As you guys grow in your Python journey, cherish what you're learning. Okay? A gentle reminder, simplicity triumphs over complexity. Okay? So, my God, don't make things overly readable. There is a sense here, right? And don't immediately jump to data classes. Remember, I mentioned when to reach for data classes. We have our data transfer objects, configuration settings, as well as any object relational mapping. Well, there you have it, guys. Our first episode of PyPod Chronicles out on a Thursday. Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode. Remember, the first link in the description is all my free resources for you guys. My Python guide, my articles, my free courses, you name it, you got it. Guys, check out the free content as well as my premium content. I can't wait to see you guys in next week's episode of PyPod Chronicles. Until then.